Crimson Desert is one of the strangest big budget games I've played in years. Not because it doesn't know what it wants to be, but because it knows exactly what it wants to be and refuses to pretend otherwise. This is not a traditional role playing game, it is not a morality driven epic, and it's definitely not a life simulation open world. Crimson Desert is most notably Black Desert Online rebuilt as a fully offline single player action RPG with higher quality animations, competent voice acting, enormous scale, and a singular focus on combat, momentum, and escalation. If that sounds appealing, you're already halfway to loving it. If you're expecting emotional intimacy or systematic roleplay depth, this game will feel cold and sometimes hollow, but Crimson Desert is never confused about its priorities. At its core, Crimson Desert is an action first open world game set on the continent of Pyrewell, a land fractured by war and factions, collapsing authority, and endless power struggles. You play primarily as Cliff, a mercenary commander whose role in the story is less about moral leadership and more about strategic intervention. You are not here to save the world. You are here to prevent it from falling apart entirely. Two additional playable characters appear later, each bringing distinct combat identities, but this is not an ensemble RPG. Cliff remains the center of gravity, mechanically and narratively. Crimson Desert does not care who you love, what you believe, or how civilians feel about your presence. There is no romance systems, no karma or morality tracking, no civilian simulation layer. Your value is defined entirely by power and alignment, who you support, who you dismantle, and which factions you destabilize. The framing is essential to understanding everything that follows. Crimson Desert runs on Pearl Abyss's proprietary Black Space engine, and this is one of the game's quiet triumphs. The game is built to support density and spectacle at scale. Large battles, complex animations, traversal systems, and cinematic transitions all exist in the same space without obvious compromise. It's cohesion of these systems that really make this game shine. Combat, traversal, and cinematics feel like they belong to the same technological ecosystem. The game never feels like it's switching modes, it simply escalates. Pywell is enormous. The map is legitimately massive, divided into 5 major regions, each with a clear identity and political function. Visually, it's impressive. Landscapes are varied, weather effects are strong, and scale is consistently communicated. But here's the crucial thing: this world is not alive in the traditional sense. Villages do not meaningfully evolve, NPCs are not socially reactive, exploration does not lead to emergent personal stories, although it does lead to progression. The world exists as a combat delivery system. You explore to reach conflict, you travel to reposition for faction pressure, you move because the map is large, not because the journey itself carries narrative weight. If you expect Witcher style stories or Red Dead Redemption level ambient detail, Crimson Desert will feel empty. If you understand the world as a stage for escalation, it works exactly as intended. Traversal in Crimson Desert is extensive and mechanically solid. You climb, glide, grapple, ride mounts, and eventually gain access to flying mounts and even heavy mechanized artillery platforms. These systems are well animated, responsive, and visually impressive. But traversal has no emotional subtext. You are not meant to reflect while traveling, you are meant to move efficiently. Traversal exists to prevent downtime and maintain momentum, not to build attachment to place. It feels good to use, it does not feel meaningful. That distinction will matter greatly depending on what you want from an open world. Combat is where Crimson Desert spends its budget, its design effort, and its creative energy. And it shows. It's not elegant combat, it's physical, aggressive, and deliberately excessive. You punch, kick, grapple, slam, launch, freeze, and burn enemies with a move set that feels closer to a brawler than a traditional RPG. Weapon augments that foundation rather than define it, and elemental effects add tactical flavor without overwhelming the system. Every hit has weight, every animation is expressive, the player is always in control. Crucially, combat aligns perfectly with the game's themes. Violence is not surgical, it is overwhelming. You do not resolve conflict, you end it. Life skills feed directly into this loop. Crafting exists to build weapons, buffs exist to improve combat efficiency. There is no lifestyle fantasy here. And if it doesn't make you stronger, it doesn't matter. And that clarity is refreshing. Crimson Desert story is functional rather than surprising, and that is entirely by design. The narrative is built around cinematic set pieces, factional confrontations, and clearly staged escalations. Major story beats, authorized escalations, new skills, traversal options, flying mounts, and late game spectacle are all tied directly to narrative progression. The story does not exist to challenge you emotionally, it exists to justify giving you cooler toys. And honestly, in a game like this, that's exactly what you want. Factions are the real narrative engine here. They exist to flame conflict, justify territorial shifts, drive escalation. There is no moral high ground. There is only momentum. Crimson Desert does not end with salvation. You do not fix Pywell. You do not heal its systems. You do not usher in a brighter future. You contain collapse. The world survives. It does not change. It's bleak, pragmatic, and entirely consistent with the game's worldview. Crimson Desert is a spectacle driven, combat first, single player action game that commits fully to its identity. It delivers exceptional combat feel, high quality animation work, massive scale, confident set pieces, a clear, cohesive design philosophy. It deliberately discards romance, morality systems, civilian simulations, emotional intimacy outside of conflict, and that trade off is not an accident. Crimson Desert is for players who want an offline Black Desert Online experience, escalated power fantasy, a huge world built to be conquered, not inhabited, story as a vehicle for spectacle and progression. It is not for players seeking deep role playing, reactive social systems, or emotional subtlety. Crimson Desert never surprises, but it consistently delivers what it promises, and sometimes that clarity is more valuable than ambition that doesn't know where to land. After all is said and done, and removing my bias, having played Black Desert Online for 3,000 hours, I do think that this game has a lot to offer in 2026. There are not going to be many games like this year. If you want to compare it to other games of its ilk, it obviously does not live up to every possible expectation or hype. That is not the game's fault. The game has a focus. And if you play it as it's intended to be played and you have a little fun in this sandbox, then I would give Crimson Desert solidly an 8.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching my content. I'll see you in my next review. Bye for now.